Haere mai ki Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Welcome to the Aotearoa Rugby Pod. We're back, 2025, 183 episodes in, season 6. The show keeps on going. So we're really stoked to say that we're back here to help you with all your rugby needs again this year. Of course, Super Rugby is starting this week, and that's why we're kicking off. The 2024 season was possibly in recent memory the best season of Super Rugby. So tight at the top of the table for who was going to come top, and then obviously the final series had the Blues come through. So we're going to have a look at how it will pan out this year in this episode as we look forward to the weekend ahead. Of course, we've had Six Nations on the weekend as well, so we'll have a little look at that. We've also got some superb guests on for you today. 2023 World Rugby Player of the Year, Ardie Savea, and brother Julian, who in 2015 obviously tore up the World Cup, are on the show. Caleb Clarke, one of the big movers and shakers of last year, superb for the Blues. And a new sponsor, by the way, Ashley and Martin Medical Hair Centres are going to be looking after us for this season, helping bring you all of that Super Rugby analysis that you get from my co-host. Speaking of which, James Parsons, back from a long summer of Instagram and ready to get into it.
Well, I need to thicken up, so it's a good sponsor to have on board, of course. But yeah, no, awesome pre-season. And as you'd know, for us, we've been doing our work behind the scenes and really looking forward to make this show bigger and better.
Yeah, absolutely. So plenty to bring for you this year, along with Bryn Hall, straight out of Japan. Bryn, you're playing footy. There hasn't been an off-season for you. How's things, mate?
Hey boys, no, look really, really good. I think a new team with Kubota Spheres right now, which has been an awesome experience and enjoying being in a new environment and a new place. So it's been really enjoyable. We're probably 6 or 7 weeks in now. We're sitting second on the table. So it's been a great start for us and looking forward to, I guess, what the season's gonna be, the rest of the season's gonna look like. And again, great to see you boys and being able to reconnect for the next 40 weeks of code. So looking forward to awesome having that major sponsor with us again as well, which is great for our brand.
Is there a little bromance going on between you and Bernard Foley?
There is a little bit, I think. I never thought I'd say I'd have a bromance with an Australian, but no, we seem to have a lot of similarities, and he's a good man. And obviously Sean Stevenson's over here at the moment, so you've got a bit of Kiwi flavour, and we're going to turn him into a Kiwi, boys. He's with us every single day in the car ride, so he's starting to listen to 660 and get in the kind of slang in New Zealand. So we'll make a Kiwi out of him by the end of the year. Big jipper.
I'm kind of surprised that Jipper wasn't in your suitcase there, because Malcolm Marx is on your team. And, you know, surely...
Oh, mate. Oh, he is very, very an interesting character, but awesome though. Jip, everything that you've touched on, everything that you could think of when it comes to Malcolm Marx, it's that and more. So probably actually look forward to having him on the show. I've already said early doors that we need you, and what the secret is for the South Africans, so us All Black boys can have a chance to get them, because they're going pretty well at the moment.
Great, let's get Malcolm Marx on the show, eh?
Absolutely.
Oh, geez, Jipper's going to be excited.
I'll be starstruck.
He'll have nothing to say for once.
Good player, which really just shows how much I admire him and respect him.
Yeah, okay. Super Rugby. Coming up this weekend, we've got some huge games, including a rematch of the final, the Blues versus the Chiefs, which should be an absolute doozy as well. Let's have a look at how the season's going to play out. So we've got a few things that we want to go through today, so you can understand, I suppose, what teams look like, where the teams are going to go with their playing style, who the key players are, and all of those things, including this year's new Super Rugby Player of the Year, which we'll touch on a little bit later on as well. So let's start, Jipper. Best looking Super Rugby squad on paper for you. Now,
way to set me up straight away.
The odds are short.
They are very short, but I mean, I think people will agree with me. I'm going to say the Blues, purely because when you bring back a player like Beauden Barrett, and you don't lose too many big stars. Obviously, Akira Ioane's gone, Bryce Heem's retired through injury, but the growth of AJ Lamb in that midfield, I think, counteracts that. Xavier Taylor is someone to watch in that midfield, and then the loose forwards has never been a big issue. I suppose the biggest issue is how you fit them all into the park, and I think probably an opportunity of someone like Anton Segner to come of age.
Yeah. Any arguments, Brenner?
It pains me to say it, but no, they're heavy favourites. And for the things that Jib touched on in terms of their depth, it doesn't matter kind of what position you see with the Blues. There's a lot of depth with it. So, and a lot of young guys. I think the loose forward trio, like you see it with guys like Aki going, and you've obviously got Anton Segner that's been there for a while. I think it's ready to kind of have that year in Aki's departure. And you've also got Cam Silfor, who's been in and around there for the New Zealand Māoris. You've got Adrian Choate, and so you're talking around depth in that squad. It's pretty good, and when you bring a guy back like Beauden Barrett, it just adds to that depth of that squad. So I could see Jip smiling there. Like you always say, though, you've got to play the games to get there. But geez, if you had pen on paper, He had the favourites. You'd have to say the Blues would be sitting pretty at the pre-season.
We all know names on paper doesn't win you titles, Bryn. You've proved that more times than most of us.
Now, the other team that hasn't had a lot of movement is the other finalists, the Chiefs. You know, apart from Tyrone Thompson and Josh Ioane leaving, that's a very consistent-looking squad, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose their big X factor is maybe the potential growth of some younger players in that forward pack and how they stand up to be able to deliver that very X factor backline. And you know, I know Sean's overseas at the moment, but he is a key man for them to get back because he is someone that can set a light. I think Leroy Carter's another one to watch. You know, seen a lot of him in the sevens. He's been awesome for Bay of Plenty, and he's a sort of player that I suppose they've been looking to transition to 15s, and his opportunity will come. And I still think there's this opportunity for Etienne Nanaisatoro as well to really push into that All Blacks squad and you know, make a stake, because you know physically he's ready for international footy. So if he can back up a very solid season from last year, and he's a counties man, so you'll be happy with that. But I think the young forwards up in that forward pack led by Luke Jacobson, it will be really, really critical. And someone like Samasoni Takiaho coming back, Semi Penny Finau really needing to, you know, I suppose, refine the form that's going to give him those opportunities in the black jersey. Wallace Teddy's a big loss, but I do think they're again loaded in that loose forward. So forget about Callum Boshier. It's really looking to that tight five and making sure their big names can stay fit and available.
Before we get on to the minnows like the Crusaders, Brenner, let's go to the minor premiers, the Hurricanes. Sorry.
Tough start to the year for Brenner.
Sorry, Brenner.
The boys in Auckland are coming in hot.
Before we get there, the Hurricanes, they were a team who came home through the regular season really strong, fell off in the playoffs and didn't quite make it. They're a side as well to take a little bit of notice of. What do you think about their chances this year? Are they up there with the Blues and the Chiefs as far as title favourites are concerned?
Yes and no. I've actually got them dropping in terms of where they were last year. And I think it's just, again, I think with what they've lost, Geordie Barrett is a big part of what their DNA is at the Hurricanes. And when you lose a calibre of guy like that, even though they are stacked in their midfielding stocks, it's probably one position where they can afford to actually have a guy like Geordie Barrett go. But look, Ardie Savea is a big loss. Again, I know they've got a great loose forward trio, but in terms of what he would do off the field, big-time player, anytime you have that kind of experience lost with both him and Geordie, it's going to be pretty difficult, I believe. And the fact that they've lost Brett Cameron, I think Brett Cameron's a massive loss for the Hurricanes, unfortunately. And we looked at last year, look at the Crusaders, who really struggled to find a 10, and obviously Riley Hohepa was down there, and they tried to go in between a few different combinations until Fergus Burke came back at the back end of the year. But it just shows how hard it is to win a competition without a 10, and like a guy like Brett Cameron, who has played really well since being down on the Hurricanes. But it's not to say that they won't do well, but I've got them dropping compared to where they were last year. We talked about them being title contenders and minor premiers. They were, pretty much up there the whole time. So I've actually got seeing them drop just a little bit compared to where they were last year, unfortunately, due to those injuries and the departure of Ardie and Geordie.
I think as well, they've lost Morby, they've lost Aidan Morgan, Sangster, Tucker. They were all big minute players and big, I suppose, different forms of X Factor, but they provided a hell of a lot in the engine room, and then obviously in that width and just that depth. Like losing a Morgan and then the injury to Brett Cameron does put a lot of pressure on that first five stocks. Lucas Cashmore, you have seen enough from him in that NPC space, and this may be the opportunity. He'll be, I suppose, you'd have to think Riley Hohepa had a strong NPC with counties. He's probably going to get first lick. He's got the experience, but don't be surprised to see a rise in Lucas Cashmore's game if that forward pack can provide a front foot ball to allow that, I suppose, youth and enthusiasm to run the cutter, with the thought of Ruben Love being a key game driver once he comes back from injury. It's just those injuries and in a short season, how they can sort of hold their own in the early parts of the season and wait for those players to come back.
So let's get to your Crusaders, Brenner. There's some experience coming in. James O'Connor, Braden Enor's back, Johnny McNicola's back. But there's some losses in experience too. Joe Moody and Ben Franks are out of the squads. Ryan Crotty's out of the squad. So there's some old heads gone. How do you feel about the squad you're looking at and their chances, I suppose, one of making the top six and then two going further than that?
I think put money on them in the TAB, lads, because they're probably going to be at the lowest that they're going to be the whole year. Me personally, I think, but the players that they had last year, unfortunately, they weren't able to get everybody on the field your likes of your David Harville, your Blackaders, your Taylor, your Scott Barretts. And so, that nucleus, I believe, of those kind of players weren't together a lot of that time last year. And so there were games where they played well, and then there were games where we were like, they should have won their game, but just through, I guess, the cohesion of that group, they weren't able to do it a lot last year. So I think with the power that is coming back, and hopefully they can stay injury-free, I definitely think they'll be in and around that top 6 area. And I think, a home semi-final possibly is something that I think is attainable for that group. And I think knowing that team and what the expectation is of them, they're not going to be able to have a year like they did last year. There will be I think there will be some changes within the coaching ranks if they can't get their job done and be in that top 6. And I think James O'Connor is going to be a big part of that. Look, I think they've got Kimara that is there in Rivers Reihana, but I think what I touched on earlier with the Hurricanes, they're not having a 10. Last year, they really missed that leadership in terms of having an experienced 10. And from all accounts, actually watching a couple of his preseason games, he looked like he's definitely still got a bit of juice in his legs. So I think he'll be very important in terms of what the Crusaders go well this year, whether it's an interchange role, coming off the bench and having that experience to close out games. And I guess having the development of Rivers Reihana and Kimara as well is going to be really pivotal for that group this year.
What about dark horses, Brenner?
I think the Reds and the Waratahs, I think we did touch on the Waratahs last year and how poor they were, but I think with the introduction of Mike Catt and talking to Tane Edmund, what his attention to detail in the attack and making things a lot more clearer, I think is a good thing in terms of what the Waratahs might need. They've had some really good guys that have come in, like Tupou, Swali'i, who's going to be a great advertisement for Super Rugby to be able to see him play. And I think Les Kiss, what he's done at the Reds, we know that they've got that hard-nosed approach, but I've seen enough development and improvement in their 12 months, and I think they could go, pretty deep into this competition. So, I think those two teams will be there or thereabouts, I believe, in the top 6 at the back end of the year.
Yeah, look, I was really hard on the Tars last year, and you just sort of saw in pre-season they didn't have it, but I think they're the biggest winners out of the Rebels. And then obviously getting Suali'i, that's massive. Callaway and Leota are massive players. Do not underestimate them. They may not have the X factor. I think Tane Edmund's time with North Harbour over here has actually grown his confidence. You could see that even getting his Australian debut. I think they've been hanging out for a 10. They've sort of been going between Harrison and him, and it hasn't been anyone's role. You almost feel like it's his to grab now, and he has to own the ship. And Jake Gordon is a skipper. I think they're a top 6 side.
I definitely do see them being top 6, having the potential to do that. But as we know with the Waratahs, they haven't been able to get the job done. How many times over the last 6 years have we talked about them having a great team but not been able to put on the field? So it'll be interesting to see how those boys go.
I actually forgot one critical side in the Brumbies. Obviously, Stephen Larkin's been there a while. They have been the strong Aussie side. And I think what we've seen in previous years when we've sat here and had to do this, and I've spent a lot of time trying to focus on, and it's been the hardest one, I think we could definitely, there's no doubt we could see a 3-3 split in that top 6 between New Zealand and Australian sides.
That's incredible considering what it looked like a few years ago.
And I think it was the closest we've seen Super Rugby. I think this is going to be much closer than last year.
Yeah, it makes it much harder now to make the top 6, especially for those developing sides like Moana Pacifica. But to help them out, they've obviously got the biggest name buy of the season in Ardie Savea coming in to join Julian at that club and try to make a difference. We caught up with both of them a few weeks ago. Ardie and Julian Savea together, guys. How good is that? Has it been fun at training? Fun being back in the same city together?
To be fair, he hasn't started training yet. Well, team training anyway. I joined him during Christmas for 1 week of his training and killed me, man. But no, I'm pretty excited to have him up here, and obviously I've been living here for a little bit now. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. The sun's getting to me though, for sure. Probably could tell.
You've made a big impact though in that sort of video before Christmas announcing signing. How does it feel having the jersey on? And
yeah, it feels good and it feels weird. Like I was thinking about it today. It's the first time, being in a different jersey, my super career. But yeah, it's nice to be in the same jersey as my brother. But I'm excited to get stuck into it with the boys.
That must take a bit of time, and you must have had it as well, like when you move away from that yellow Canes jersey to look yourself in the mirror, and so much of your identity, I suppose, is tied to a club, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like, we were massive fans of the Hurricanes, growing up, and we always try to get out to the games as much as possible. I think we even went to a game at Athletic Park. But you know, I think for me, what made it easy was the environment at Moana, and the boys sort of made it so easy, made it really comfortable. Everyone's the same in terms of our culture, so it just makes it really easy. You know, there's a lot of humour.
On that note, because I spent some time with the forwards before Christmas at Moana and helping out a few of the hookers, that switch on, switch off was very evident. Like massive, like, man, when they crossed the line, it was like warfare, and then they come off, you know, like it's quite unique. Like sometimes it takes, well, I'm probably speaking for myself, I need a bit of a thaw out after clashing heads, but it was an amazing environment how they could just go, we're on, we're off.
You're spot on, and I think Tana's done a real good job. He understands that, you know, we can't be sort of serious like, you know, 24/7, but making sure the boys know that once we cross that line, it's, you know, it's time to work.
And it was quite surprising. Like, you've been at the Canes for 11 years. You go into the environment and they do like local prayer, singing songs, but then again, like going on the field, seeing the boys just put their head down. A bit too much contact. But you know, it's a great thing to see. And for me, I'm a rookie. I mean, you know, I'm going to learn, go there, learn. And
How big a part was Tana of you making that move?
massively, massive. Having him there, you know, just it gives a bit more comfort in the decision. Knowing, you know, he's been at the top of the game, understands it, but also through the talking process, you know, he flew down to Wellington and took my wife out for dinner, me and my wife, and just all that stuff, which is normal for us, like the you know, the Pacific Island people, to, you know, we're family. So having that was pretty special, and just having him as a coach and what he's done, yeah.
Mm. Is there a wider engagement too? Like, you often see, you know, families involved in rugby teams on game day, but do you see that during the week as well? Is there a wider involvement of the family?
Yes, I think the partners sort of had their first little get together, and got a rundown of how I guess Moana works, and the guys behind the scenes, and I think they had a sip and paint type of thing. So they really enjoyed it. I was like, when's Tima getting home? I can't put the kids back to sleep, but yeah, it's pretty special, you know, involving the family, because they play a massive role for all of us.
What are your processes in terms of that expectation? Like, let's be honest, like Ardie Savea going to Moana, there is a big hype around it.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
You wouldn't be playing rugby if you didn't want that, you know, like that's what comes with it. And it's a great challenge for it's a great challenge for our club and our team, to be able to improve and be better, and you know, and win the competition. Like, if you don't say it, it's not going to happen. So that's the goal in my mindset, and whatever happens, but all we can do is control what we can do during the week, each day, and give us the best chance.
It grew last year. Last year went up to 4 wins. What are the areas where you feel the build is for Moana?
Being able to keep the ball for a long period of time, just little mistakes, whether it be handling or set piece stuff. And then a lot of the time, our discipline played a big part. So walking teams down the field made it easy for them to score points. Definitely better season, you know, over the last 3 years. But it was also frustrating because we knew we were so much better than what we showed. You know, like Ardie said, the championship is the goal, and I think all the boys are on the same page.
We've seen you in 11, we've seen you in 12, we've seen you in 13, we've seen you in 14. Where are we seeing you this year, you think?
Man, I might move into prop.
Do the Ruben Wiki.
I'm definitely keen to stay in the midfield, so 12 is probably looking more likely, but you know, I'm happy to fill in wherever the team needs me.
Why'd you like that spot?
Closer to the action, more carries. I love carrying the ball. You know, I am getting a bit older, but I still love the contact. So yeah. One
of your areas that developed last season, well, in my opinion, was your short kicking game. Those grubbers in behind led to a lot of tries. Have you specifically worked on that?
Yeah, you always try and sort of, like, you know, when after trainings you do your extra skills, try and put it in as much as you can. I used to try and work the left foot, but then, like, looking back, it's just...
There's a lot of smiling going on here.
No. I was just thinking, like, because I would never naturally, if I'm under pressure, I would never naturally go on my left. So I just stick practicing on my right and, you know, got better at doing that under pressure.
Because it won the game in Northland, the grabber in behind. Who were you playing? I was at that game. I can't.
Oh, the Reds.
Reds, yeah.
Yeah. No, that was a good game for us. And again, you know, that was a last-minute try for Millie as well. So we were pretty stoked.
Looking at your squad, is there a player you think in your team that you just are super excited about? A person who you're like, man, people should watch this guy.
There's guys like Jackson that's come in. He's been an awesome leader. Lossi Filippo, he's come in. But one guy that I'm really excited about is Kyron. Just really young, talented. He's like 6'5", 6'6", can jump bloody up there onto the roof. But you know, just the more confidence he gets within his game, and I think he can be a superstar, to be honest.
Do you guys have a hoop there?
No, it was good, because then they'll all have to strap their ankles.
Are you sure?
One last question. Okay, Ardie, it's World Cup final coming up.
Yep.
And the selectors have come to you and said you're allowed to make 3 picks. You're allowed to pick a current player,
Yep.
a former player, and you're allowed to pick a coach to come along the way as well. Who would you like to take along with you?
There's a past player right next to you.
Do you want to go first, or?
I'll bring Steve Hansen, probably one of the better coaches I've had, like in terms of that level and accountability and just scary, but you know, like you want to work for him. Definitely as a past player, I'll bring back Jonah. No game plan, just give him the ball. Current,
You guys are hard on each other.
yeah, I'll go with Ards.
Thanks, bro.
You got to go with Tana as your coach. You've got a whole season coming up.
100%, eh? Yeah, I'll go Foz. Just, real great relationship both on and off the field. Current player, I'd go Wallace. You can just jam and then, man, I'll say 215 bus.
Yeah.
250 pass against France.
Yeah.
Holy.
Watch out. What do you reckon?
Oh, that's perfect.
You don't mess with
Jonah
that.
was probably the call. I didn't even actually consider that. I've asked a lot of people these questions, and that was a beauty.
Yeah, I'd go.
Well, I was thinking Jonah, JC or Sione Luaki.
There's a trend there. You like players who smash people. Awesome, guys. Hey, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, surely Ardie Savea is one of the hot favourites for the new award within Super Rugby Pacific, and that is the Player of the Year award that's coming in this year. It's an interesting philosophy. It's a little bit different to the Dally M's in that we're going to see every single week what a top 3 looks like from every team. So the way it'll work is that the coach and the captain of the opposition team will rank 3, 2, 1 for their opponents. So there will be people from both teams in both games getting points throughout the season. You get to the end of the season, add up all of those points, and there you are. At the end of the regular season, you've got your Super Rugby Player of the Year. Interesting philosophy, interesting way of doing it. You quite like it?
Yeah, I love it because I think if you go to awards nights for clubs, everyone always wants the Players Player of the Year. Because that's your mates saying, man, you might not be the biggest X Factor player or scored the most tries, but it's the acknowledgement of the battle. And I think sometimes it's too easy to give it to the X Factor. And if you look at captains, they're going to have felt that battle. You look at coaches, they've going to seen who was a problem. They would have assessed things at half time. I think there's no better people than to deliver it. It may need to be restraight, but one thing I like is something's been done. Jack Measley and his team have put this together to try and get this fan engagement going, and I think it's exciting because not to make it about the NRL, but you watch the Dally M, you watch the points ladder. The only thing I don't like is when it goes dark, but because you sort of want to be, well, it goes dark a little bit too early for me. I think it has to go dark at some point.
You want transparency so you can see it right through to the end.
Yeah, and I think it creates hype because you're like, oh man, this is a big game. If we'd known where Sean Johnson was, Would have he missed that last game? I don't know, but it creates talking points.
Well, and also, you know, in the end, if you deserve to win it, you deserve to win it, and everyone can see it.
Yeah.
Why hide it?
100%. But I also I like the idea of not putting it on to pundits or ex-players. You know, like it's players that are out there doing it. It's coaches out there doing it. I don't think they're the ones doing the most amount of work week in, week out to see who the threats are and what the threats may be and what you can sort of expose through your team.
So my thought, Brynner, is that when you look at Moana Pacifica as a developing team and look at the elite level of Ardie Savea's game, he's in a really good position to be getting 3 points all the time, 2 or 3 points all the time. Do you see him as the favourite as well?
So you'd have to think he would be a definite favourite. You've obviously depending on what coaches and what players actually value him. And that's what I do like around this award as well, because sometimes the unseen work of, you know, guys that are cleaning rucks or doing all the hard yards, and that actually has a big play in terms of how the game is played. They get points as well. So, you know, you could see a loose forward that ends up, you know, winning a Hoskins Tutu won it last year because of his attacking attributes, but also all the hard yards that he did as a loose forward is going to be really valuable, because sometimes you could think in the Dally ends, it's a halfback usually sometimes, or a fullback. You know, that's the kind of position that tends to get the most votes. But for me, I'm really going to be interested to see what these coaches and what these players, captains, are picking in terms of what is considered a good game. So yeah, it's a really good element that I'm going to enjoy watching and see how it plays out for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think a player like Ethan Blackadder, you know, everyone respects him, everyone loves the way he plays. If he can stay fit, I think he's going to accumulate a lot of points, because no one disrespects him around the collision area and his work rate. And I think that's coaches and players. And I also think someone like Tawatawa Nawai, said it before, he's great both sides of the ball. He can be the X factor, he can get you the turnovers, he can make massive defensive plays. I think the captaincy is going to be so good for him. I think it's going to grow him in arm and leg in all aspects. So I think someone like him again is someone that will attract a lot of points.
And in a team which doesn't have a lot of superstars.
Yeah, they don't, but I think he's a genuine superstar, you know, like in his own right. I think he is a Sua'ali'i to me, or a Bowden Barrett, because he's the player they're going to look to.
Now, the Blues have got a bunch of stars.
Yeah, that's
mentioned
the
Hoskins
problem.
and Tutu before, so you could see a split there, especially the way that they play the game. Their stats from last year, 54% possession for the season. No other team in the top 5 had 50. Under 3 second ruck time, so quick ball, 67% of the time. The average was 50. They won an average of 5.5 mauls a game. The average was 2.93. There are all of these places where the Blues were absolutely dominant. Do you expect other teams to follow that approach, that hard approach, that upfront approach?
No, I think there'll be elements in the 22. I think it's not too dissimilar to the Crusaders in the way they were when they got into the 22, when they won those 6 titles, they came away with points and they were patient. And that's why the possession stat's high, because the Blues, although it may take a few rucks, they eventually bully their way over the line in the 22. But the most important stat for me for the Blues is not with the ball. Defensively last year, they didn't have the least amount of entries in the 22, but they were the hardest side to break down. I think it was 1 try per 5 entries, which is quite low. The next best was per 5 entries, I think it was 2.5, which was the Hurricanes. So that's quite a big difference. Yes, teams are getting in there, but if you can't break down that wall and they continuously stop you from getting points and you don't get threes, they become a hard side to beat, because they will score at the other end. I think they were 4 tries to every 5 entries, for instance, on attack, because they were belligerent and they didn't risk anything down there. They will have to evolve, I think, Brynner. Do you not agree in terms of that attack shape and style? Because people would have done a lot of work in and around of what worked for them and will, like anything, work out a way to stop it.
It's pretty hard in terms of trying to preview that, when a lot of it just pretty much just comes down to the left thing on your chest in terms of heart and being able to have the right intent and physicality. So teams will try to go out there and try to, I guess, win that. That'll be a big point around that. And you know, sometimes they might actually be holding on to the ball a little bit longer, because you don't want the Blues to have the ball. So there will be little things that teams try and do change against the Blues. But like I feel when we won our championships, is that if you can win the physicality better and you've got a great set piece, it makes it so much easier. And you look at the outside backs and even just the backs in general in that Blues team, it's a triple threat effect really on everything in terms of everything that they have in that squad. So yeah, it'll be difficult, but I look forward to seeing how other teams are going to try and nullify that with the Blues this year.
Brynner, one of the interesting things about the stats was that when you looked at the Blues and the Chiefs, teams that made the final, they were the only 2 teams with 2 kickers in the top 10 for most metres kicked. Having those options in amongst that power game is obviously vital to win this tournament.
Very good. But in terms of like playing without the ball, sometimes that's the best way, especially in weak conditions in that time of the year. Sometimes playing without the ball is the most easiest thing to be able to frustrate teams and put them under pressure. And if you look in that final, correct me if I'm wrong, it was raining kind of that night. It was quite wet. So
Harry was
when you've got a big
semi in the final, his kicking game was just immaculate.
And especially in those conditions, sometimes the attacking ability or the attacking structures you have doesn't actually play a big part of it. It's where can you put your forwards in the right positions? How can we start using our strengths, which I touched on around their set piece, to go into the 22 and I guess bullying teams for long phases. It's really hard to do. So I think even with Damien McKenzie as well, when Sean Stevenson is back as well, hopefully not for the sake of us. So for New Zealand Rugby, I don't know, Jip obviously can hear the half, but we'd love to just continue to keep having him here. He can stay in Kubota for us nicely. But you know, a lot of times last year, Sean and Damien's long kicking game put teams under a lot of pressure. They wanted to be able to give it a false sense of security of terms. We're just going to keep kicking it back. And when we feel like we want to counter-attack and get the right pitches, kicking or running, they made the right decisions most of the time. So, yeah, sometimes, like I said, playing without the ball is the best recipe to try and build momentum. And especially with line speed teams at the moment and how the game is going, your kicking is pretty important when it comes to that.
And if you're not kicking superbly, your way to get to where you need to go to is post-contact metres. And the Blues did that superbly. One person in particular who was an absolute weapon in post-contact metres was Caleb Clarke. His numbers really added up. 155 carries, 1,500 running metres, 51 tackle breaks. Yeah, just a stellar 2024 for the Blues and the All Blacks. And we caught up with him a couple of weeks ago. Big year for you last year. Did you manage to take a second during the off-season to enjoy it and reflect and take it all in?
Yeah, it would probably be sort of the times either taking a motorbike out or driving up to Muriwai. Got to spend a bit of time just reflecting, and yeah, it was such a hard year sort of to come into, sort of in terms of 2023 and how hard that was. But I think for me that was a blessing to go through that and then come out the other side just real motivated and ended up just
physically it was the best you've looked in my opinion. What sort of work did you put in?
Just big change in nutrition, staying away from the likes of the chocolate and the fast food.
Looking back at 2024 and the success that the Blues had, like where do you think it all came from with a bit of chance to look back at it?
I think new coaching staff that brought a different mentality. We've always had great coaches over the years, and it just sort of Vern brought this, I don't know, this new edge where he's just real old school. And I think, with us as the Blues, we have so many different personalities when I think we just needed one that just aligned us all. And, he brought that sternness, stern Vern. And, he showed us clips of how well when we play, and this was clips over the years of the Blues, and it just showed us how we wanted to play, and we kept trying to go away from that and play differently. So he just brought in, he's like, this is how we're going to play, and it took us probably maybe a few rounds to actually get it right, but by the middle of the season I think we just knew how to play, and it was a lot up front, winning it up front, and us swingers getting off our wings and actually helping. So
I'm obviously still friends with a lot of boys in the squad. No one said a bad word about him. It's like he has there's an empathy to him that other people can't see. From the outside looking in, do you know what I mean?
Everyone knows him as Stern Vern, but we said it before, Rico, Dalton and I, that he's just such a caring person. He'll be hard on you, it's because he cares. I remember, and I spoke about it before, one of my first trainings back, I remember I was holding the edge and like we were training, and I was like just standing out there, and he goes, stops everything, goes, Caleb, what the F are you doing out there? And I went, I'm holding the space. He goes, get off your wing and get in there. And I went, oh, yo. And like after that, it sort of broke the ice between us, because I remember having conversations with Joe Schmidt when he first got announced, when Vern first got announced, and I was like, what's he like? Schmitty, tell me. He goes, Caleb, he's real old school. And I was just like, man, I struggle with old school. I talk too much, I have so much energy, but nah, Vern was he's just real caring, and once he gets to you, like, he's just, again, caring. And
it's interesting you say get off your wing, because it did feel like that was a growth in your game last season. You know, like you know, Mark normally does it. He's always in and around, but you even with the All Blacks, you were always hovering in and around that right.
Yeah, I underestimated how much it actually helps the forwards as well. Like, like you guys are crashing and bashing, and I was just like waiting for the ball on the outside. But once we get in there and we're in the nitty gritty, it just firstly upped my work rate, and then just realizing how much it helps, I just fell in love with it. And yeah, I think Vern.
It's worked for you.
Yeah. I was like, man, this is what forwards feel like. But then I run back to my wing after.
Unfortunately, we don't look like you, and we're not as fast as you.
I remember doing one pick and go, and then like my ear got scratched. I'm getting cauliflower ears. No.
Get some headgear on.
Yeah.
Get some headgear on.
Drain my ear. And he goes, you just cut it. And I went, oh yeah, that's right. And ran back to my wing.
How do you choose when you come in and help out? And, you know, how does that decision get made?
Yeah, we actually had a lot of conversations about that too. I think once I know I'm not a threat on that left side, go be a threat somewhere else. And that's what he made me believe. He sat me down, he's like, Caleb, you're a threat when you're around the ball. If you just stand on your wing, you're doing nothing for the team. And I just went, okay. So pretty much now, if the ball's not coming my way, or there's no opportunities yet, go look for it somewhere else. And so it was such a simple answer, even though I overcomplicated it in my own head. And so after that, just sort of ran with it.
Is there a trust element to that as well? Because you've got to know that someone's going back to where you are, right?
Yeah.
So that's got to be a big part of you being able to get in there.
So it's a real balance. And I think that's the beauty of, especially with the Blues, there's a lot of us have been playing a long time with each other. And so, you know, like the likes of the midfield, to balance it out, if we run and go and then they have to come out, but then we also know when to swap back. Normally it's Riggs yelling at me, get back on your wing. I'm like, okay, oh, sorry. But it's just, you know, you have that balance, and that takes time to sort of develop.
What else are you getting up to, mate, when you're not, you know, preparing for a season, and obviously a big season for the Blues? You mentioned going out to the beach and jumping on the motorbike. How did you develop a passion for motorbikes and for cruising on those?
I actually have to thank Roger and Johnny Tuivasa-Sheck for that. They both ride, and I remember when I first met them back in about 2020, we just were like all at the house, and they're like, do you ride a bike? And I went, yeah, my pedal bike. Yeah. The what bike? But they're like, no, like motorbikes. I was like, no, I don't think I ever have. And they both taught me how to ride just a Ninja, a Kawasaki, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so mean. Like, I just fell in love with it more because you're just having to focus on riding. You can't think of anything else. And I think at the time, I'd just come off sort of the disappointment of sevens and trying to go down that road. And so riding kind of just shut that all off. And so after that, just fell in love with it, and now I've got 3 bikes. 3 bikes, and probably going to get another one, but you know, just still falling in love with just riding and getting away from everything.
So you're a guy who needs just some empty space.
Yeah.
Just a chance to...
Don't we all?
Yeah. We were just talking about voices in our heads just before, and yeah, I got heaps too. It's random stuff. So yeah, I think it's just awesome way just to switch off and just to be in the moment. That's why I love it so much.
So there's a World Cup final coming up in a few months, and you've been granted the opportunity to pick a current player, a former player, and a coach. Who are you going to take along with you?
I'll start with coach, and I'll just say, can Vern come? Yeah, I'll take Vern. So Vern's one. Former player?
You're related to a pretty good one.
Yeah, but any rugby answer you're on wants to hear Dad, so I'll try to think of someone else. Is they all at their prime too? Like prime?
Man, whatever you want it to be. Any player.
Oh, because I would say like prime Brian Habana. Like I'd love to be like prime current player. Oh, my teammate, Tamati Williams. He's my roomie. But front row, I feel so bad. They don't get the recognition they deserve.
You're talking my language. You're talking my language.
See? The mighty. See?
God bless you, Caleb. God bless you.
A former player. James Parsons. I'll take Jibba.
No, take a banner.
Yeah. No, but that would be my 3.
Nice. What do you like about Tamaiti?
Oh, I think the first time we roomed together was our bye week in the World Cup, and we went to Bordeaux, and we were good mates, but we didn't really hang out until we became roommates, and we just got along. He's someone of faith as well, so our room was just always playing like church music. And then he's someone that can sleep through anything, and I'm someone who has to sleep really late. So he's like, I was like, bro, this is perfect. Like, he doesn't snore. And then, like, I think carrying on into this year as well, he had a young family, so even just hearing how he is, not as a person but as a father as well, it was just real special to see. And so he's just an awesome person, and he's back in Auckland now, so we're about to go play golf sometime.
Oh, golf. Good.
Yeah, just
Into it.
trying to change my personality.
Can I just say though, like, can you just probably elaborate how important a roommate is for performance?
Oh, well, like, it's so underrated and overlooked. Like, people don't realize that you have to get along with someone to be able to, or you have to, your not scheduling, but like just how you are as people have to sort of sync in order to get the best out of you. Like, you're playing like in front of thousands of people, and you want to be in the right state of mind. You don't want to have to worry about what your roomie's going to do, or like if this is disrupting him. So yeah, it just plays such a big role that people don't really realize. And yeah, lucky at the All Blacks, you can kind of ask, especially if you've been in for like a little bit, you can ask. Even at the Blues, you just hit up Friday and say, oh, can I room with him or him?
Hey, mate, thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Caleb's a lot of fun.
Certainly is.
Yeah.
Great man to boot.
Yeah, and if you used to be a skipper, he'd love to give you a pump up.
Definitely made me feel good about myself, that's for sure.
Yeah, fair enough. So, with nice things about Caleb, we also like to say nice things about referees as well. There's going to be a few tweaks as ever coming up this season. Not huge ones this year to look at, but we saw it during the World Cup. The escort runners that stop players getting to compete for the ball in the air, they're going to be gone within Super Rugby. We're also going to see the pillars who stand around the rucks you often see when a halfback's going to box kick or clear, and there'll be guys just lurking there and obstructing people coming towards the halfback. They'll be gone. 60-second conversions to speed up the game, and halfbacks get a free run, Brenner. That's the other thing. Can't touch a halfback within a metre of a ruck. Just, if it wasn't easy enough already for a halfback, they're just now rolling out the red carpet.
Fair enough, mate. We should be having the red carpet. And I think the older I do get, the better. The better having those kind of rules for me personally. But yeah, look, I think the kicking one's been a really cool one. I think in Japan at the moment we're testing out these laws, and I think it is going to bring back. I think whether it's good or bad or not, the kicking game is going to be massive. I think for us, we're pretty much a contestable based focused team at the moment, and look, if you put your kicks on the money and you've got very good aerially contesting players that can do that, it's a real big weapon to have. And I think we've even found as well, when you don't even get the kicks right, the counter ruck is really important. And if you're not kind of in and around that area defensively as an escort, because you can't be there anymore, your ability to be able to clean that ruck and hold strong, because a lot of teams are actually counter rucking those wide edges. And then from that, you get a really good counter attack opportunity off that turnover. So I think it's been really nice. It's been a really good law change. Now, I think if you do see in the Six Nations, there were a lot of kicks, especially in England. I think they had 46 kicks on the weekend, even though it was wet. But what I did like was the law interpretation of the 5-second rule. Guys are taking it a lot quicker now, and if they aren't getting that ball quick enough, it is hurrying up that kick in terms of having a bad execution-wise box kick. So I have really enjoyed it and look forward to, I guess, how it goes in Super Rugby, and if teams are going to go more to that contestable game. And I think it's a great way, considering if there is line speed pressure, which most teams are doing out in the world now, having that contestable and being able to go up for that ball 50-50 actually gives opportunities of click attack and being able to play off that unstructured play.
Have we seen any of this in the Six Nations? Have we seen...
Not really, but I don't think the conditions have really allowed for it. And I do think initially, like with all laws, it's almost like the start of a boxing match. You just feel each other out, and then you work out where weaknesses, and the more footage you get, There was heaps of times that, when Leon came to the Blues, that we would set up for an exit box kick, and there'd be people on the blind side that looked like they weren't there, and Finlay would just turn and give it to us, and you'd play a nice little blindside move. Because people, if you see them drop, just expecting the box kick and they don't want to charge. So I just think there's innovation in and around this ruck area. I know someone that no doubt will be looking at it, and that'll be Joe Schmidt for sure, for the Rugby Championship, because he is an innovator. He likes to, find ways that are ahead of his time and ahead of other teams. So will we see it in Super Rugby? Not sure, but I think we'll see it at some stage.
The Red Rose of England did very well on the weekend. Finn Smith's rise at 10, Marcus Smith at the back, the way they pulled out that game right in the dying moments, they looked happy. Yeah,
Elliot Daly was pretty special in that move. Like, that was his timing to pop up late. I think the threat of Marcus Smith opened that gap, so it's probably be counterintuitive to what I'm about to say in a minute, but I think that threat of Marcus at 15 created that space for Daly to take. Finn Smith, he's been great. His little crossfield kick for that try, and this isn't about him. I just think when Marcus Smith is in 10, England look red hot. And I just would like to see him just get 80 minutes every week in that 10 jersey, because he's got the brunt up front for him to cut things open. And for some reason, if it's 60 minutes, he gets subbed and things get slow. I still, again, even for Scotland against Ireland, kick to the corner. We saw Sexton really take charge for Ireland with Joe Schmidt, and they were a team that just almost in the first 30 minutes, they'd always go to the corner, and they were just relentless, and they'd come away with 7s or 5s. And I think Scotland missed an opportunity. I think England time and time again missed an opportunity by going for the 3s. Not saying the French game, because I would say, they did the best of what they had in those conditions, but I still would think with how poor France were with open try lines early on, I think the French lost it rather than England winning that game.
The French, if they have their time again, they'll be pretty disappointed of how much points they left out there, especially in their first 20 minutes. I think 3 or 4 times in that 22 or chances of being able to score points. They dropped the ball. When do we really ever see Dupont kind of not being able to hold on to their ball and score a try? So unfortunately, it was that kind of day for the French. But credit to England. Look, I think we've touched on the last 12 months with them. They haven't been able to find a way to win these test matches. I know they beat France last year, but time again, games against us, they weren't able to win in the last 10, 15 minutes. The Northern Hemisphere Tour, they weren't able to win games in the last 10, 15 minutes. So for confidence for a group, that kind of win against the French, where they were heavy underdogs, even though it was at Twickenham, people weren't probably thinking that England were going to win.
They got the result, but I think our point is, I actually believe they can be so much better and really challenge in 2027. But I think Marcus Smith is the key.
The Irish continue on. They're obviously going to challenge in 2027.
100%.
But what did you make of them on the weekend? They've just picked
really
up.
like Prendergast.
Yeah.
I think it was a game that it looked like he, especially when it got tough, and that's straight after half time, he gave that beautiful ball for the opening try. There has been, a little bit of a impact, I suppose, in terms of that Sexton and who's going to take charge of this Irish side, and he looks like a player that potentially will get better and better and can do so. But they have such a strong pack, and it's a side that will try things. James Lowe, Henshaw's past it. They find a way to the line. They really do go for the tries, and I think that is their biggest strength, is they suck petrol out of the tank. Even if sometimes they don't get over, they've used so many tackles up, and it's a lot harder to defend than attack, that it actually, at later parts in the game, and as we saw, they really did run away with them that last 20.
Brent, have you seen anything new from them?
Inside the 22, or just in a lot of that face-based shape, they were heading the third runner. Jamieson had all 3 options off him, which is really hard to defend if you've got good go-forward ball, which Jip touched on in terms of the breakdown. So, Jamieson, Gibson Park, for me personally, I feel when Ireland are at their best, they're winning their contact area, and Jamieson has just been able to be instinctive around where he thinks the space is. Look, even the tops kick with Keegan, that's obviously off the cuff, and they've been able to talk that on the run, but, the flow-on effect to be able to score points, because Jamieson has a really good touch and feel on the game, and you'd have to think Prendergast, man, what a rise for that kid in terms of, another test match, another time starting with Sexton not being there. I think look, if they can keep doing what they're doing when it comes to that forward pack, they're very hard to beat. And any time we've seen Ireland struggle, when they lose that physicality battle, that's when they're vulnerable. So whoever's going to play them next, you've got to try and stop them, because I think they're pretty tough to beat when you've got Jamieson pulling the strings as he was on the weekends of good decision making.
I do think that's probably the one thing, if you were to look at what has changed since Sexton's left, a lot of their bodies in motion is all off 9, whereas it was always so much off 10. And there was that separation, and Johnny would always really orchestrate double arounds and tip passes. And you look at all their tries, as, getting to that edge, as because of all these bodies and motions off 9, it really does tighten that Scottish defence, and that opens up that long ball or cross-field kick. And that has probably been their evolution is, okay, he's the senior statesman, he's the one running the cutter like a DuPont.
And he's looking good. That sidestep on Jamison Gibson Park.
He's definitely got hot feet. He's played touch growing up, surely.
He was gone. Right, so to finish the show off, once again this year we're going to be doing the tipping competition. So go to the Aotearoa Rugby Pod League and the Super Rugby tipping competition and join with us. And again, we'll give the winner a chance to come on the show and talk a bit of code with us at the end of Super Rugby, and maybe a few more opportunities if we see you flying out the front. Geez, maybe we'll get in touch and find out what the good method is. How are you doing it? How are you doing this? Let's do the tipping. Let's start. First up, Crusaders Hurricanes.
I'm going to go Crusaders.
Crusaders?
Yep.
Well, I'm going to go for the Crusaders, and I hope they're not as bad luck as I was last year. That's why I was horrific in the tipping comp after 4 rounds. So I'll be picking the Crusaders, but it'll be interesting to see how they go. Hopefully they've got all their players that they need to on the field to start the year.
From memory, the Hurricanes got both of those wins last year, but it was the first time in years and years and years that they'd beaten the Crusaders. So it'll be interesting to see whether that's a blip. And if you want tickets to this game, check out the QR code just below on the screen and you can pick up some tickets to go see that game. Waratahs v Highlanders.
Well, I can't pump the Waratahs up like I have. They're not. Pick them at home. If it was in Dunedin, I think it would be a lot harder, but I think Dan McKellar will bring a freshness to the side that will be hard to beat, but it'll be very tight. I do think the Highlanders are a potential dark horse.
Bryn?
Yeah, I'll go the Waratahs, but geez, if they don't win this one, I can't even pick them.
They have to win at home if they're going to be in the top 6.
The Brumbies, we've talked about the Brumbies being a contender. They've got to go to Fiji and beat the Drua first up. Tough gig first up.
It's tough. I'm going to back the Brumbies.
Brumbies?
I'll go to the Fiji and draw.
Yes, here we go. And then we go to the Blues versus the Chiefs. And once again, go to this QR code. You can pick up tickets to the Blues versus the Chiefs, the rematch of the final. I'd like to see a full stadium there. Blues v Chiefs?
Blues.
Blues are home.
Got to win your home games, mate.
You got to win your home games. As if it was ever in doubt. Brenner?
Yeah, I'll go Blues. I think, we've pumped them up the whole thing the whole time. So, and I think it's just going to be a continuation. Their style that they have, not a lot of change. So having that cohesion within the group and bringing Beauden Barrett back, be interested to see where he does play. We did touch on how well Harry did play for them last year. You'd have to think maybe he's at 12 and Beauden starts at 10. But yeah, I'm going to go the Blues. Just a bit too strong for the Chiefs to round 1.
Right, and then the Force host Moana Pacifica, who have a 2-game road trip to start the season.
Moana Pacifica.
Yep.
I think it's the perfect time for a road trip because they can leave a little bit earlier, and then they're over there, for a good couple of weeks. So, and I think they've had a really good, strong pre-season. We didn't quite mention Solomon Alomalo, but I think his aerial game will be crucial. Willie Havili, Ardie, we've spoken about at length, and I think Julian's still got plenty to offer.
Yep, I'll be going the same. I'll be going Moana Pacifica to start off the year with a win.
So that's the end of the show. First show for the year. Looking forward to Super Rugby action this weekend and, of course, Six Nations and everything else coming up over the next little while. Please contribute to the show. Send us an email at aotearoarugbypod@sky.co.nz. Get spicy in the comments section on YouTube. We love to read those ones and see what you have to say there and respond to them as well. And a big thank you to Ashley and Martin Medical Hair Centres for sponsoring the show and looking after us for the rest of the year, bringing forth to you the great opinions of James Parsons and, of course, Bryn Hall over in Japan. Bryn, good luck for another game coming up this weekend.
Thanks, boys. Always a pleasure. Great to see us.
Say hi to Bernard for me, mate.
I will, mate. Don't you worry. I will.
Enough of that. Thank you very much. Catch you next week.
Hey.